Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Oh my God. Good to see you guys. Welcome back to Lotus Path Holistics. This is Leo and Luna. We are doing our season finale, our 10th episode of Let's Be Honest. And we're very happy to have you guys. It's been a wonderful season. All 9 episodes have been amazing, and we want to make this 10th episode special for you guys, talking about spirituality. So let me introduce myself. My name is Leo. I am a Past Life Regression Therapist and also a Clairvoyant. I see energies and work with energies and heal people through energies. So this type of topic is so much fun for me to help you guys understand what energy is and how spirituality helps us.
And my name is Luna. I'm a Karmic Resolution Facilitator. So I work with karma across lifetimes to these lifetimes and assist my clients to resolve the problems from across lifetimes to right now in their daily life. And I'm also a karmic light code artist, so I do create art to help my clients from past lives to this lifetime to bring other gifts, connect with their ancestors, and all the stuff, the fun stuff we're going to talk about today, right?
Yes, we are. Yes. Hey, Sharon.
Hey, Sharon. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, so let's talk about St. Patrick's Day really quick. So this is our matcha latte, Starbucks Reserve in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
So this is my favorite matcha latte recipe. You know, just almond milk, matcha, and vanilla, and sometimes heavy cream, and and some sugar, some sweet and low, something like that. Yeah. Good to see you, Di. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Di. Hi. Hi, Jasmine.
Yes.
Who else is here?
Everybody. All right, so let's talk about spirituality. So let's be honest about spirituality. So it's an interesting topic because spiritual awakening is so popular in the spiritual community over the last 10 years. I mean, I began to get in the community like 10 years ago. Remember 2012?
Yeah.
Do you remember 2012 when everyone thought the world was going to end? Was it May 2012?
Yeah, I think
May 21st, 2012? Oh my God. I remember that time in the spiritual community was a very special time, and everyone was sort of coming up and awakening. Hey, Madison.
Hi, Madison.
And so, hello.
Hi.
So it was a great time in 2012 in the spiritual community where we were all getting into spirituality. You know, there was indigo children.
Everyone was preparing for the alien invasion, remember?
Yeah, it was intense. But a lot of what I understood about spiritual awakening is that in 2012, it allowed for people to start to re-question their life. It was a big pivotal moment in people's life where they started to question everything about themselves. So it was very inspiring for me to go back to our history and what we learned back then. You're welcome. And to understand what that was and talk about it now. So today we're going to be talking about spirituality and spiritual awakenings. And at the end, we're going to talk about the last 9 episodes of Let's Be Honest, Season 1. And we're going to talk about everything that we loved about it and our favorite tips and tricks, favorite moments of the season.
I'm looking forward to Season 2 already.
Yes, Season 2. So it was great, yeah. So spirituality. Spirituality is definitely usually like a sense of connection to the outer world, the higher power, everything that spirituality and the spirit has to do with. So technically, when you have a spirituality, a lot of people misunderstand. There's spiritualists, which is kind of like a religion or a belief system. Spiritualist is the belief that there are spirits beyond and that you can communicate with your ancestors and the dead. And then there's spirituality itself, which is sort of like a form of practice. But for me, and what I understand, spirituality is part of all of us. It's a part of everything that we do. Spirituality is just as important as our physicality. And everyone has it, so there's no like people being ousted or disregarded in spirituality. That's just what we are. So definitely spirituality I find to be as a part of you, a very strong part of you that you have to acknowledge. And also, when you talk about your spiritual self, you're talking about the part of you that wants to find the meaning of your life, your goals, your spiritual goals, your mental goals, all your life purposes, all those things are your spirituality. So it's very, very common for you to focus on your spirituality and think, what is the meaning of my life? So definitely something we're really, really interested in talking about. Yeah. What do you see spirituality as?
So, coming from a small country where spirituality is being seen as kind of like a scary thing, I would say. So in Greece, most of the people are Christians, and so they see spirituality as breaking away from the church, which is not true in a sense, because being spiritual, it doesn't mean you can be religious, or being spiritual, it doesn't mean that you have to be religious. You can be either or.
That's true.
Because from my understanding, from all these years, sometimes, I was trying to talk about spirituality in my home country. It was not really perceived in a nice way, but it was a way for me to understand myself. And so spirituality is more of understanding of who you are as yourself, but as a part of a bigger energy. So people who are religious understand, and they are spiritual as well, understand themselves as, well, this is who I am, this is what my gifts are, this is what my purpose is, but this is my connection to God. Those who believe in a higher power, like the universe or the source, there's so many different names, so they understand themselves through spirituality, who they really are, what their purpose is in this lifetime, but also they understand that many people say we're one, understand that unification and the bigger energy they're part of. So as you see, everyone is spiritual in their own way.
That's absolutely true. So what I understand about spirituality is that a lot of people seek it in religion. And I feel that religion is sort of like, for me personally, I don't choose a religion. If I had to, it would be like Buddhism or Hinduism, because I feel closely related. But the problem is I can't put myself in a box of religion, because religion itself is too limiting to me. And I feel like it's limiting to people I know and clients that I help. It's like trying to put a shiny ball of fire inside of a small tin box. Like, you can't. Spirituality is to be developed. It's to brighten that star within you. So, a lot of you will find that spirituality for you is a different definition for you and then somebody else, and maybe your parents taught you a different way. But I can definitely assure you that spirituality is found within, always, and that's something we definitely want to show you guys. Basically, how to ask yourself the right questions, how to think the right things to spark spiritual awakenings, because we both had awakenings, and as Luna says, reawakenings.
I had so many times.
Yeah.
2012, I'm like, oh my God, I'm awakened. Yeah. 2 years ago, when the pandemic started, I had a huge reawakening, and it was like, oh my God, I thought I had an awakening in 2012. That is nothing compared to what happened 2 years ago.
That's true. I can confirm that. Yeah, like over the last 2 years, I've had a brand new reawakening of my abilities and my website and my spirituality in general. So it just became a brand new thing for me. I think all of us can agree that over the last 2 years during COVID-19 and the pandemic and all the hard things that we've been through, it's been like this pressure cooker that has exploded in a lot of people's lives. All of our spirituality has been awakened. So if you have any stories to share, feel free to share in the comments as well.
And I feel the same right now, because there's so much going on. The earthquake in Japan, the floods in Australia, and then the war that is happening, in Europe with Ukraine. There's that pressure cooker that you just said. So there's so much pressure. And then I have realized from my experience and experience from others that awakening spark under the most pressure. So when we're usually calm and collected, it's kind of like, what is the point of questioning life? Why would you? You're in a good place in your life. But when things are happening like that, you start questioning everything around you. Why this is happening? How this is happening? Has it happened before? I'm seeing cycles, from years ago. This is happening again. This is how it affects me, or maybe reminds you something that has affected your family or your friends. And you feel that sense of unity within yourself and with others. And it is when community comes together. And I feel that this is, I guess, unfortunate, but also fortunate that these things are happening for us to awaken or reawaken.
That's true, yeah. Something important to take away from this talk is to understand that, we have so much experience with spirituality. We've seen people go up and down with spirituality. And it's true, even in our own lives, usually through the most stressful times, you have the most progress and innovation. And stress can breed innovation in general. So spirituality is the same. Usually under very, very strong and pressurized circumstances, your spirituality will awaken because it is needed for you to survive. So that's happened in our darkest times.
You know what I thought? Of X-Men.
Yeah.
You know, like when you watch these movies, right? And then like people who watch
It's
like
a very
X-Men,
common thing,
it's a
yeah.
very common thing where under the most pressure, these special abilities spark.
Yeah.
You know, and it's true.
Yeah, the
And
concept is true.
Yeah, it is. So this is how I feel like it happens in our lives. So, for example, you guys in Australia, under all this pressure, you know, with the pandemic, because I know that you still guys are dealing with that, and then floods, and you might see, for example, that all of a sudden you're an empath, or all of a sudden you start seeing energy, seeing auras, and maybe telepathically connected with your family, like feeling what they're feeling, and like, oh my God, what is happening? It is because of that.
Yeah, 100%. It's a story as old as time. When you want to be spiritual, usually it comes at a necessity. It's kind of like when you need to pick up a large box to save someone's life.
Yep.
Like a box fell on my cousin, I have to pick it up to save his life because he's suffocating. And then suddenly you gather the strength from the divine universe. All of a sudden you're, Superman, and you pick up the box. It's the same thing with our spiritual muscles. When we need it, they are there. And usually spiritual awakenings will happen under very, very strong pressure. So all of you will see that. You'll see that in the past 2 years especially, where you'll see there's so much pressure not to go outside, to be away from a virus that you have no idea about, and all the civil unrest, and then suddenly, you start to pick up on so many things you never thought of. You start to see things in your mind. You're like, whoa, I didn't think I could do that. These are the times to take advantage of because they're communal. Everyone's having a spiritual awakening these past 2 years. Everybody we've talked to, it's the same story. And even for us.
Yeah, I want to share my story. This has been happening, I think it started last year, and I still kind of fathom it. I'm still working on it. And so I started, I have been doing since my childhood, but now more, I would say, on a conscious level. So I do shamanic journeys, and I do connect with the spirit world. And I also meet people. Let me tell you another crazy thing. I've met like so many people. I have met men, I have met women, I have met children, and I have some great conversation with them. And I thought, well, these perhaps are my guides, right? Mm-hmm. To come to realize that these people show up in my life. And I have met at least 5 people the last year. I'm like, hold on. I have been talking to you, for the last 6 months or so. How are you, in a sense? And it's crazy. I never thought that this would happen, but it is happening. Mm-hmm. And it is because we're going under so much pressure, and also I feel the need that I need to connect with my soul family and friends. And, I'm just like speechless. I'm like, how this is even happening? Even like seeing the features of the person, the personality, everything. Mm-hmm. And I know other people too that have been telling me crazy stories. I have a friend and she told me she started to remember her own past lives out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. She's like, I don't know what happened. I start seeing things. She's like, can you guide me through that? And I'm like, yeah, I guess that's the right time that you start seeing past lives.
That's true. Yeah, and so also I know some of you had mentioned OBEs mm-hmm. and spiritual experiences, kind of like how Luna was mentioning. A lot of that has happened. It's like over the last 2 years, it's felt like an out-of-body experience where you're like in a whole new dimension. You have no idea what's going on because the world is intense right now. But definitely from our perspective, that's a part of spirituality awakening. It's a part of the fact that there's so much pressure in our life that we just want to escape. But it's important to understand that through this process, if you find out that you have an ability that you had no idea you have, like, astral projection or shamanic journeys or anything like that, it's very important that you grasp that ability now before you sort of like lose that sensation, so you can start to learn it and start to grow with it and let it take you in the right direction. Yeah,
and feel free to share your experience. I would love to hear what guys is happening with you, the last especially the last 2 years with all these huge shifts that we are, experiencing. And if you have any questions, just feel free to ask both of us.
Yeah, and she's really good with like astral projection. She when I met her like 12, 13 years ago, she was astral projecting everywhere.
Yep.
I remember when I had met her, she was astral projecting into my room and she knew everything. And I'm like, you need to stop. But it was under such pressure because of both of our lives were under a lot of pressure that she was looking for a spiritual awakening within the pressure.
Remember, Leo, when I remember what you were eating something, I'm like, are you eating ice cream? He's like, how the hell do you know I'm eating ice cream? And it's kind of like those things just happen. I didn't know it was happening. Just say, hey, I'm tasting ice cream. I don't know. Are you eating? He's like, yeah, I'm eating ice cream.
Things happen.
Yeah.
So, back to spirituality. So spiritual awakenings, as we were discussing, there are turning points in our lives. Turning points that establish brand new roots in everything that we do. It's when everything changes. It's when it starts to transform everything that we think, we feel, all of the above. And spiritual awakenings happen every day. They happen all the time. Even like entire businesses, entire families can go through spiritual awakenings together. So it's not just you, it could be a group of people going through a brand new awakening together as a unit. And you start to understand that there's something deeper, there's a bigger meaning of life that you never thought possible. So spiritual awakenings are that type of energy. And if you ever feel that way, just know that there's spirituality running in you that wants to be able to come out. So respecting your own spirituality, understanding who you are, understanding your life purpose, it's all key. So we want to definitely talk to you about our experiences as well as questions you can ask yourself that can actually get you in the right direction when it comes to your own spiritual awakenings. Yes.
Before you start with the question, I wanted to say something important. So
sure.
Some people say that, spiritual awakenings sometimes spark out of nowhere, but they don't. It's kind of like an energy that cultivates. Perhaps there's something that you question. And they said, oh, I'm feeling this, I'm seeing that, or this in my life doesn't make sense and I want answers. And kind of, subconsciously, this is working. And one day, boom, you just wake up and you're like, I'm fed up with this and I need to fix it.
Yeah, because that's the point. Because when it comes to spiritual awakenings, yes, as I showed in my video that I posted recently, it's not from nowhere.
Yeah.
It's something that's born
over.
You
said that.
Yeah, it's born over time. And it just comes up, So it doesn't suddenly just happen. Spiritual awakenings are encouraged by your life experiences. So we're talking about the pressure that you go through. You can even find that in your creativity. So if you find yourself, like I know there's a few artists out there, if you find yourself making art a lot, it's because your creative spark is happening. Creativity is born in spirituality. Spirituality is the key to creativity. It's something a lot of people try not to make the connection to, but this is why when you create art, it's a very spiritual experience. It's deep within you. It's encompassing your entire life. So creativity is one of those things that it's part of everything that you do. And creativity, when you have a creative awakening, it is a spiritual awakening.
Yeah. Leo and I have both been very, very creative. I've been like that since my childhood. I was always creating something new, drawing, painting, and then later, he taught me Photoshop, so I started working, more with digital art, and I started experimenting with different things, and I knew that it was always expressing a part of myself that I couldn't really pinpoint what it is, but then years later, the more I was sitting with my work, and I was looking at it, I was tapping into my subconsciousness and unconscious mind, because the more you work with it, the more you bring those parts of your mind together, and then you connect to the superconscious, which is the higher knowledge, the universal knowledge. And so the more you work with these energies, the more you understand what exactly is your art and what exactly are you channeling at that moment.
It's true. Yeah, so definitely think about it, because with me it was the same. Honestly, over the last year or so, when I revitalized my website, it was a creative awakening for me, but it was same as a spiritual awakening. So as I was spiritually inspired, I started creating things, and I started to create, let's be honest, I started to create videos, I started to create everything because there was so much power in the awakening that I needed to make something of it. So it's all part of the creative process. Spirituality is creativity. And it's something that, I definitely understand. I teach it as well because it's important for us to know that spirituality, sexuality, creativity, they come from the same bubble. They come from the same source. Interesting, right? Okay, so let's talk about 4 ways to understand and promote spiritual awakenings and awareness. So in my video, I do talk about the 4 questions that promote it, and it's based on the 4 pillars. So you will see on my profile on my website, I talk about the 4 pillars. It is something that I've always understood and believed, something that we've understood in esoteric teachings, in tarot, understanding the foundations of life itself. But it's something that has come up in a lot of my work, but it's also important to understand the different aspects of your life. So we're going to apply those 4 parts of your life to actually a spiritual awakening. So it's the 4 questions that actually lead towards that awareness that could change your entire life. So for the physical life, when we have a spiritual awakening, or you want to actually spark one, or you want to understand who you are, and you're like, I don't know what's going on with my life, I don't know my meaning of life, you definitely got to ask yourself physical questions, which is, what am I doing and where am I going? What am I doing in my life? What kind of job am I working? We're talking about things that involve your money, your family, and your health. You got to ask yourself, should I be eating, McDonald's today? Should I be working at this dead-end job when I could do much better? Should I get back in school when I feel like I dropped out? These are questions that you want to have a physical awakening. And that physical awakening leads to spiritual awakenings. So you will find that there's common, very uncomfortable situations that you have in your life. Like, I'll have times where I am eating such, shitty food and I feel so, down, and it just comes to a point where I'm like, I need to know, what am I doing? And I start asking myself that question, what am I doing? Where am I going with this? And that question starts to bring answers. You start to get the answer of nowhere. It's a hard thing to ask. You don't want to ask, what am I doing? What am I doing? No, you're going nowhere. And that's something for you to know so that you can bring your awareness higher in your physical life. So that's the physical life, physical question, what am I doing? Where am I going? And how healthy am I? That can actually bring you a physical awareness, a spirituality to your physical life, your job, your money, your family, and your health. Those things can awaken. You don't have to stay at that job. You don't have to be in an unhealthy situation, whether it's in a relationship or even your relationship with your food. And then with money, then you have to start to think more creative ways to get money to be happy. You don't have to work a dead-end job. You just have to find out what makes you happy. If, working behind a desk doesn't make you happy, then maybe it's time for a career change. That's when you ask yourself the question, what am I doing with my life? So it's a very important thing.
And I feel this is the physical aspect of spirituality, because many people think that spirituality is kind of like, it's kind of, maybe it's thoughts, it's emotions.
It's everything.
It's in your everyday life.
Oh, yeah.
And this, I feel this is when you bring that energy into your physical life. And this is a huge understanding. For example, for me, there were so many things that had changed throughout the years. For example, a huge thing for me was when I found out that I'm adopted 2 years ago. And that was a huge shock, but also a huge understanding. And so I said, where am I going with this? I don't know who I am. In a sense, I don't know who am I physically related to. But then I had to redefine who really my family is. And I chose soul family in that process. And that was really huge. Or when it came to my work, when I came to Chicago 5 years ago, I worked in luxury retail. It never really resonated with me, I will be honest with you, because, I was trying to connect with people on a very mindful way. But, luxury retail is nothing about it. It's kind of like trying to sell luxury goods. But I was always going far and beyond for people because I care, to the point that I call people who are on vacation to make sure, that their products arrive to them. And they said, no has done that for me before. But it was not just me as me in a sense, but the mindset that was getting around. So I felt, I need to take that understanding and take it into a different set where, into a different field where I can actually express that in my own business. And it is when I birthed my own business. And I said, well, this is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. And then in a health process where I had for 5 years, because of extreme stress, I had stomach issues. And so whenever I was eating maybe something spicy, I would just have these huge flare-ups. And I had to sit down and understand what exactly is happening, because, you know, physical problems come from emotional problems and mental things that haven't been resolved. And so I had to sit down and talk myself and see what can I do to nurture myself. So I found, you know, I started eating healthier, and then I stopped stressing out as much. And every time I was stressing out, I would just, you know, meditate, or would just take a bubble bath. There's two things that de-stress me. Yeah. And I'm happy to say that for a year now, I haven't had these issues at all. My stomach is being fine. So when you're fixing all these physical issues and you work with them, it is the spiritual aspect of yourself where you physically understand what is happening into your life. And let's be honest, this is setting the foundation for what is to come.
That's true. That's very true. So the physical awareness and your spirituality is super important. To understand that your spirituality just works its way through your physical life like that. So let's move on to the next point, which is your mental life. We're going to talk about your mental awakening and understanding of your life. Questions that you want to ask yourself when you are going through a spiritual change is, what is my truth? What is my inner truth? That's one of the biggest questions. I've gone through that a lot. What am I thinking? Am I being heard in my relationship? Am I being heard at work? Am I being heard in the family? These are questions that change your entire life, because you have to understand the truth about it. Are you being communicated with about the truth in everything? And so it's about your mental life, your thoughts and your words and your ideas, and if they're being conveyed in the right way. It's all about how you communicate. So in your life, you want to have a mental awakening that is spiritual, right? You got to ask, what is my truth? What is my inner truth? I've heard that so many times, but I've also used it a lot. I'm a person who seeks truth all the time. And one of my number one goals in life is to find the truth in life. And it's inspiring to me, and finding truth, seeking knowledge is important to me. It's part of my motto in general. So I found myself to have a lot of mental space because I would have a lot of mental awakenings. And I would ask myself all the time, what is my truth? What's true about this? What's true about that? And it awakens everything. So when you go, here's a good example. If you go around your life and you go through these moments at least once a month or every other year. Hey, Roxana.
Hi, Roxana.
And you ask yourself, what is my inner truth? What is my inner truth today? What is my inner truth tomorrow? These questions change everything. Sharon said it, the truth shall set you free. It's the truth. It's the truth. And it's because a lot of our, what holds us down is very mental in this world. A lot of this world is based on propaganda, upon lies that we believe. And when we believe those things, those hold us back. So it's a very powerful awakening when you actually ask yourself, what is my truth? What do I think? And when you ask yourself that, maybe once a month, just sit down with yourself, meditate, what is my truth? What do I think? Am I being heard? And you'll start to understand what's good for you and what's not good for you. The people who are toxic versus the people who actually care. And you start to tell the difference just by saying, am I being heard? Is my voice, getting out to the universe? It explains so much. It just awakens your thoughts. It makes your words very powerful, and new ideas and perspectives are born out of this. The truth is out there, and you just have to ask for it. And when you ask those questions, boop, spiritual awakenings. It happens all the time with me. All the time.
A huge thing that I want to mention about it, when it comes to, I would just say, the mental part of ourselves. Limiting beliefs, learned behaviors, conditioning. These are the three major things that hold us back. The things that you learned during your childhood. The things that people tell you, you believe in them. It doesn't matter where it is. Family, friends, work. And, once someone tells you something and you believe in it and you run on that.
Yeah.
This is what is holding you back. But once you understand what is your own truth, as Leo said, then it is when you start having that awakening and understanding who you really are. Who are you away from what they told you that you are?
Mm-hmm. That's true. And also, let's go back to number one about the physical life. Unlocking your physical abilities in life involve asking those questions. Mm-hmm. So your physical health, being able to do sports, being able to be up and running Tai Chi, to be able to climb even a mountain, is all based on your ability to ask yourself these questions about your life. Now with the mental, you got your mental awareness and your spirituality. It is when you unlock your mental abilities, which are, telepathy and, understanding people, being able to see beyond things. So with the mental awareness, it's a lot of what people see spirituality is, but it's just one part. Spirituality it has three legs, and that's the mental, the physical, and the emotional. And spirituality is at the top of that. And but very commonly you'll understand that spirituality is commonly just a mental awareness. People want to be mentally aware of things. They want to know. They want to feel. They want their mind to be communicating with the universe. But I can tell you that to awaken your mental consciousness, you really got to start asking yourself that question. The question is, what is my truth? What is the truth? The truth about religion, the truth about everything, So start to ask yourself those questions so you can communicate with the universe. The universe communicates back with you. And you start to get awakenings. Spiritual awakenings just suddenly, they pop up. And you'll see that happen. You want to spark it, you have to ask the right question, for sure.
Yeah, and another thing that I would like to mention about it is that, people say, how do I start having all these abilities? How do I do OBEs, and how do I have lucid dreams, and how do I do my shamanic journeys? How do I even talk to my spirit guides? How do I see my past lives? And these are all a very mental process, because it is something that that your mind needs to understand that it is true. And once you know that there is something you can do, then it actually starts happening. But if you have been taught by the society, by the culture that you grew up in, if you're religious or not, by your family. And so if someone told you past lives are not real, this thing doesn't exist, and you grew up, for example, in that mentality, you might, later on, you may want to remember your past lives, and you can't.
Yeah.
And because why? Because you grew up in that mentality. Or you say, I will never have lucid dreams.
Yeah.
Because they told you, this thing doesn't exist really. It's kind of like someone telling you, do you see the sky? The sky is black. You believe in the end of the day, that the sky is black. If someone tells you every day, all day, do you see the sky is black? Eventually you will believe in that reality.
That's true. The key to these questions with your physical life and your mental life, when it comes to a spiritual awakening, it's about doing for yourself and thinking for yourself. So while you ask yourself questions like, what am I doing with my life? Where am I going? Am I healthy? How's my money? You want to ask yourself, am I doing for myself or am I doing for somebody else? I have to do for me. And that's that awakening where you'll start to find things you do for yourself. And the mental is the same. Because you have to think for yourself. You can't have other people, the news, books, everything think for you. You have to read books to gather knowledge, but not regurgitate knowledge as if that's truth. Yeah. No, the only thing that's true is that we never really know the truth until, it just comes at us. Everything is speculation until it's proven. So you have to then explore. And you have to awaken to the fact that sometimes things you're told by your parents and in society, sometimes they're not true. But it starts with asking yourself that question, what is true? Then you can start thinking for yourself. So with these first two pillars of understanding spirituality, you have to understand physically, are you doing for yourself or are you doing for somebody else? Mentally, are you thinking for yourself or are you thinking for somebody else? You have to be an individual. And a spiritual awakening starts with the individuality. Because you have to understand that you yourself, you're enough to do everything you want to do. And those are those basic questions you ask yourself. So it really works out. It's like dissecting the little things underneath everything, but it's true. So let's talk about the next one. The third one is the emotional awareness. Emotional awareness leads to spiritual awareness all the time because they're very, very similar. but also very different. Emotional questions involve, how do I feel? What is love? Am I being loved or am I being cared for? These are questions that have to deal with your relationships, your friendships, your relationships with colleagues. It is all about your connections with other people. That is your emotional life and your emotional awareness. But when you start to ask these questions, how do I feel? It's again about independence, which is like the first thing I always teach my students is independence. It's not about you being without others. It's about you understanding who you are versus who everyone else is, because that's the first part of spiritual awakening. You have to pull yourself away from the world to then be like, this is who I am. And so how do I feel away from everyone else? I think it's a really good question I've always asked myself in my own spiritual awakenings. You know, I want to feel, okay, for all of you empaths, because there's so many of you.
That's a big one.
It's a very big one. Emotional awareness is so key to spirituality for all of you empaths, right? And understanding that, you have to understand how do you feel versus how everyone else feels. You got to understand what is your feeling, your individuality. That leads to spiritual awakening because it helps you understand who you actually are. So that's something that's definitely come across my path.
Yeah, so when it comes to the emotional part, is a really, really big one in a sense because, well, as Leo said, if you're an empath, hi Didi, welcome. So if you're an empath and you're around, I mean, technically everyone is an empath. If you are spiritually aware, you're an empath in a sense. You feel the energies around, you feel emotions around, and so when you try to awaken, there's a big problem because if you feel everyone's truth and everyone's you know, the way that they feel or the way that they process things, you just absorb, but you don't know how you feel about everything. And I would just say it. I've seen quite a lot. I mean, we saw in the past, I remember when we started spiritual, like, officially in 2012, right? In forums where they would just create this big thread and then they would say, the energies are going to affect people, this, and that. And everyone's like, yeah, I feel it too, you know? And everyone's like, we're in this together. We feel this all together. But sometimes people try to feel because they try to be part of a crowd. Yeah. But sometimes, for example, full moon, happy full moon, right? I'm not being affected the same way that some other people are. Sometimes I might resonate, but not necessarily every time I feel the same way about the full moon. Some other times I'm emotional. Like this time I was very balanced. I'm surprised. I had a good sleep. I had good food. Everything was like really good this time. I felt really, really balanced with this full moon. But some other people might say, I don't feel that way. And so the collective emotion can just drag you along. And so just make sure that you emotionally know where you stand. And a big part of it, to have an emotional awakening, it can be terrifying. Because for people who are not empaths, they become. It's a thing.
It's true.
Because once you open yourself and you start connecting, you start feeling not only people around your emotion, you start feeling the spirit world. Maybe you start feeling like, oh, I'm feeling scared. I don't know what's happening. Perhaps it's like a dark entity just passing by you. You know, just like you can't see it, but you feel it. Or maybe you start, for example, here, for me, I didn't know that the war in Ukraine was happening, but I was feeling conflict. I was crying and I had visions about children asking for help. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what am I seeing? Really? It was not a good one because I woke up out of a nightmare. And then Leo told me from the news. I tried to avoid watching the news because, you know, I get really overwhelmed. And he told me what's happening. So even if I tried to close my eyes and ears to what's happening, I was still in tune what's happening in Europe right now.
True.
And so that can be, right, Leo, that can be really scary when you feel everyone and everything around you.
Yes. Empathy is very scary, but at the same time, it's very powerful too. Yeah, very powerful tool to use. Empathy is basically how I do everything that I do with my work, but it can also be something that hurts a lot. Mm-hmm. So you want to be able to master your spiritual awakening with emotional consciousness. And how you do that is you make sure that you know how you feel versus how everyone else feels, but you also have to respect that you feel everybody. So there's a good balance in the middle. Understanding that can really help you spiritually awaken and be aware of how you feel. Also to be aware of who's toxic and who's healthy in your life. It's all there. So when you want to know if someone's toxic with you, all you have to do is ask yourself, how do I feel about that person deep down in my gut? And do I feel loved when I'm around them? And also, do I feel cared for when they talk to me? Their actions, do they make me feel loved? Those are the things you want to ask yourself. So it's again about that independence, that first step to spiritual awakening, the first step in the Lotus Path motto, independence. And it's about actually freeing yourself from everyone else's thoughts and feelings. And you have to do that by actually working through the people who hold you back. So here's the key to spiritually awakening. Emotional life. You have to distance yourself from people who dampen your emotional awakenings. Physically, that's true too. It's very true, especially sexually. Because with the physical world, you don't want to be having sexual relations with somebody who is, feeding off of you and not really adding anything to your life. You want a healthy sexual relationship. But when it comes to your emotional life, you don't want to have friends, family members, or anybody else who actually puts you in a place that you don't feel like yourself. And you feel like somebody completely different, and you don't even feel like you're being authentic. You are the friends you keep. It's unfortunately true. The longer you hang out with someone, your auras connect and you suddenly become them, they become you, and that's something that you have to focus on. You are the friends you keep. So when it comes to your spiritual awakening and your emotional consciousness, be careful. And when you want to awaken, you'll have to very, very often understand that you got to pull away. You got to sometimes let people go. It's sometimes necessary in order for you to progress and move on in your life and to spiritually awaken. You kind of got to get rid of the toxic people. They could be family members sometimes. That's the hardest part when they're family members. I've gone through that.
Yeah.
There will be very toxic family members that sometimes you have to say, no means no. And it is what it is because you feel that vibe and it pulls you down. So when you want to heighten your spiritual awareness, unfortunately, the real life implications of spirituality, which is often what I go through when I teach someone spirituality, is that, past lives is great, but you're not going to really get anywhere if you don't apply it to your physical life.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't start understanding who in your life is from your past lives, who's your mom, who's your dad, who's your sister, who's your brother, who's your lover,
who's your boss,
who's your boss, who's your friend, who are these people? And you got to understand how they affect your spirituality. And this step that people don't like taking in spiritual awakenings, but is necessary, is starting to let people go who don't serve your soul purpose and they're holding you back and attacking you for being you. If you find someone in your life is holding you back for just being yourself, it's sometimes time to let go. And just don't be afraid. It could be even your own family member, and it's hard. But to distance yourself emotionally is not bad. Spiritual awakenings need space. They need time. You need space. So don't ever be ashamed of having to pull yourself away from someone important in your life if they become toxic to your spiritual growth. It's key. It's hard. It's a hard reality. But it's better you know now than you know later. Because I personally have been in situations where I've kept around toxic people in my life, and I don't even know how I feel because I feel all this toxicity around me. And in order to spiritually awaken, tough. You got to get with it. And one of the most recent people I talked to this past year, he was asking me, why don't I spiritually awaken? Why do I feel like this and that? But I'm like, but you surround yourself with people who drink, smoke, and do drugs all day long around you. What do you want? You want to feel peace. You want to feel zen. You want to feel this, but you're surrounding yourself with, people who smoke pot 24/7 and don't even care about their reality. Not that pot is bad, but some people use it in bad usages, bad ways and bad habits. But the people you surround yourself with is such a big deal with spirituality. It is key. So with the physical life, you have to start to frame your world around your spirituality. Create an altar if you feel like, fix your life, feng shui, like I talked about in the previous videos and stuff. It's very key. In your mental life, you got to make sure that what you think is what you think, and it's not what somebody else told you to say. And then with your emotional life, you sometimes have to make sure that you're emotionally safe and you're feeling safe. And if there's someone around you who's holding you back, trust me, it is messing up your spiritual awakening. And sometimes your spiritual awakening, it could be as simple as that. Sometimes you're just not awakening just because of the people you're around. We've been through that. Yeah. But as soon as I got rid of those people, I bloomed.
Well, there's some interesting things because I had a huge awakening once I let go of my stepfamily in Greece. And so that was a huge process for me because as we talked in the previous, lives that we did have, with Leo. And so they were hindering my growth where I was trying to take care of them. And so, yeah, Roxana. Yeah, emotionally safe.
Emotionally safe.
I was not feeling emotionally safe. That's what I was trying to say around them because I had to constantly take care of them emotionally, make sure they're okay without them caring about how I feel.
Yeah.
And so I had a huge awakening, a huge growth once I let that part go. And then the last 2 years while building my business, I met quite a lot of people. And interesting thing is, there are many also spiritual people who is going to make things more confusing for you because I connect with many spiritual people, but then I dealt with a bunch of stuff where some people do respecting my work. They said, oh, past life regression, a past life, yeah, no. And I'm like, okay, but that's my work. So I try to understand the other point of view, but I was not understanding that was being disrespected. And so, I even had like my work stolen to a point, work that I wrote and had out there was taken away and I was trying to be understanding. And the problem is empathy is a big thing. So we'll go back to empathy. So I was trying to be like, okay, mentally was trying to understand where these people come from. And I was trying to compromise, find the middle ground. And I was feeling the energy of the other person. I was trying to understand how they feel and what they feel. And I was disregarding myself. And so this is like a huge purging that I did 2 days ago on my Facebook page. I deleted 300 people. I will tell you that. 300 people who were not serving me in a sense where I had no communication, no contact. Some of them, they didn't even support my work. And I'm like, what is the purpose of having these people around if I'm trying to progress and connect with my soul family? Because that's my purpose. So if I keep this crowd around, I cover a huge space. And the huge space can be, filled by people who matter. What happened 2 days later? Me and Leo went to an amazing event here in Chicago. You guys might have seen it in his profile. He tagged me. Oh my God. I met some amazing people there and immediately I met like 3 people and I felt like they replaced those 300 people. The energy was amazing. These 2 weeks I have met also people in person. I was super excited. I'm like, oh my God. This is what it is to actually replace that energy, that dead energy in my energy field. And I will tell you this, I had another reawakening. I started seeing things more clearly. Now, I'm working with different, I would say, abilities where, the way that I connect with my tarot cards, I have seen some crazy things happening around them. I'm still working on. Perhaps it's going to be a project later during the year. But there's another awakening through that huge process.
It's true. So case in point, you gotta sometimes get rid of people if they don't communicate with you. And that's what emotional life is about, connections. If there's no connection that's healthy, sometimes it's just the way it is. And that's just a shortcut, okay? Because I'm telling you, every single spiritual person I've met, or every time someone wanted to go through the process, and understand, why am I not spiritually awakening? But, I mean, you have to ask yourself, why are you surrounded by people who hold you back? Mm-hmm. That's your problem. It's about who you surround yourself with. Your emotional awareness affects your spiritual awakening. It's all the same. It's the same. It's all part of the same group. So you want to be able to be safe in your physical environment, safe in your mental life, in your mind, and safe in your emotional life. That's like giving a plant, soil, water, and sun. You need those things to be able. Well, actually, that's pretty accurate, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
Soil is
water.
Physical.
Water is emotional.
Yeah. Well, sun's spiritual, but
yeah.
Well, mental we can consider the
I
air.
mean, no,
the carbon
mental is
dioxide. That makes sense.
Yeah, and when you talk, to the plants, and then you just like you care for them.
Sense, That does make sense. Yeah, for a plant to grow, you have to give it everything it needs. It needs its physical life to be set, planted properly. It needs its mental and the air, all the air around it.
The air, yep.
Yeah, so it needs your air. It needs proper, placement, non-toxicity. It needs emotional life. It needs to be cared for with water. And then it needs a spiritual life where it gets the sun. Wow. Lotus Path Holistics. I'm just kidding. Yeah, just like
true life.
Basically. Well, that was an epiphany. Okay, so let's get to the fourth one, which is their spiritual life. So spiritual awakening and spiritual awareness together, okay? Basic questions all of us sort of ask, which is, who am I? What's the meaning of my life? Is there a God? Things that have to do with your belief systems, your self-image, and your life goals. These questions we all understand because they usually spark spiritual awakenings. But they're like I say in the ad, spirituality is just the key piece, but it is not the end. It is you have to allow for spirituality to affect your physical, your emotional, and your mental life. It has to make changes in your life. If it doesn't make changes, it's not a true spiritual awakening. You need changes in your life in all those aspects. Your spiritual awakening doesn't live only within you, it's your whole life. So with the spiritual life, if you want to start and spark a spiritual awakening, you can ask yourself, who am I? Look yourself in the mirror and say, who am I? Who am I? And let the answers come to you. Ask yourself, what is the meaning of my life? What is my purpose? What should I be doing in my life? Go seek it. Go seek and you shall find the meaning of your life that way. And then asking yourself, what's the creator? Is there a God? What can I do about it? These are things that can actually help you spark that spiritual thought that gives you the awakening that you need. But the case that I want to make and I want to help you guys understand is that spirituality is one leg on a table. There's three other legs, these three other pillars, and you have to understand how to apply those to those out of life. So easy ways, let's talk about that. How to apply spirituality to your physical life. How we talked about feng shui, just actually doing stuff to awaken your life and to better your health. Maybe in doing healthy foods for once and applying fruits and vegetables. Just physical things that can be spiritual. Just think about those things. And then you got your mental life where you can actually apply your spirituality to the way that you think. Meditation really, really helps. And your emotional life, you want to apply spirituality to your emotional life. You want to involve yourself with emotional people. And this helps your spiritual awakening so much. It's weird, I know, but the truth is the truth. Your spirituality and your spiritual awakening is dependent on your surroundings and your emotional, physical, and mental life. And you'll see that when you start making these changes and you start asking yourself, who am I? What is the meaning of my life? And all of that. Ask yourself who you truly believe and who are you. The world is yours. That's what starts a spiritual awakening, and use that. And I'm telling you, it works. It works 100%. So we got 10 more minutes. Open to discussions.
Hi, Gary.
Hi. Hello from Chicago. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And happy full moon.
Happy full moon.
It's full moon right now, actually. So
for us, yeah.
So happy full moon. Meditate on it. It's a great moon. We'll leave it open for questions for you guys as well. And we want to talk about our favorite moments over the past 9 episodes, because this is our season finale. Some of my favorite moments. I loved the episode about toxic relationships because they really, really set home for me. They helped me understand the toxic relationships I was in. So I really love that episode. It's something that I watched back and I'm like, wow, that was really, really interesting because it helped me understand that it was a good reason I got out of those relationships. One of my other favorite episodes was the grieving episode, how to deal with grief in the proper way. Because it helped me grieve in my way and also helped people that I know with their grieving processes, like losing loved ones. So those were some of my favorite moments throughout the season. Great topics, great topics. I loved it. So what were some of your favorites?
Narcissism, that was a big one.
Oh my God.
Because I had some realizations about my own life and how, living with narcissistic people, you can actually, to a point in your life, turn like that without even knowing that you're doing it. And then, well, I have to say, Lee, I'm so sorry, but I have to say it. My favorite was the way that I explained trauma by using it as an example.
You mean last week?
Yes, last week was my super favorite.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just tell you this. So when I work with my clients, and generally, when I talk, I'm very, very practical. So when I try to explain, those big terms or, spiritual concepts that they're kind of like hard to grasp, I use very, very simple examples from everyday life. And I feel that was, yes, I remember she was there. So I do love explaining that, and I feel like that it was like a great way to explain to people how trauma works, but also like the way that we explain how trauma carries along lifetimes and how we can address it in this lifetime too. That was a really, really big one.
Yeah, I liked the episode about narcissism as well.
Yeah.
Because it did help me understand that some of the friends that I had were narcissistic, and I'm like, this is unhealthy. And I did question a lot of my friendships at that point because I'm like, I don't understand why, things can't be even and fair, and it's so, yeah, lots of things happen at that time. And another one that I loved was Red Flags in Relationships, which was our first episode.
Red Flags was a really, really good one because I started realizing, stuff about my life. I'm like, oh my God, I'm keeping some people around. There's so many red flags. And the stuff we were talking before where I was trying to be very, understanding on an emotional and mental level. And I'm like, oh, maybe this is who they are. So the red flags were there, and I was kind of ignoring them. So, lesson learned.
Oh, yeah. And I loved the fact that we were able to cover Valentine's Day so well. We talked about the 4 pillars in love and relationships and talked about how to find love. That was great because it also helped me understand, what I did right and what I did wrong. But I'm very glad that I was able to help you guys understand love through different perspectives. And also love and relationships through perspectives from energy readers and clairvoyants. So it's quite interesting.
And what was the funny one that I remember?
Yeah.
When we talked about narcissism, we said, the topic was living with a narcissist. And we said, what's the best advice? Don't live with one.
Yes. Don't live with a narcissist. Or just people who tend to be about themselves. You definitely want to surround yourself with people who are, communal based and really care about you. So definitely watch out for that.
Yeah. So, for season 2, we want you guys to, give us suggestions and tell us what would you like to hear from us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can leave suggestions, in the comments, and then me and Leo will work on them and we'll definitely create season 2.
Yes,
right, Leo?
Yes. Yeah, so it was a fantastic season of amazing 10 topics. We will continue on with a lot of new projects coming, a lot of tarot projects, past life therapy projects. You'll see soon.
And local projects.
We hope to be doing some events and seminars here in Chicago. We have an event coming up soon in June, which we're going to announce pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yes, a tarot event. So that's going to be really fun. And I'm also going to be making my spiritual education videos weekly as well, exploring new topics. And we will pick up in season 2 sometime in the summer, most likely, or sometime before that or after that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of interesting things. things. So it was a pleasure having you guys over the last 10 weeks. And it's been such a informational, educational journey. Spiritual education team.
And for us too, just letting you know, we had many epiphanies, so thank you guys.
Yeah, let's be honest. Let's be honest is a great mantra, I think. Yeah, it's a great mantra. We should create a mandala around it, just like, let's be honest, let's be honest. Be honest. It's time to be honest with yourself. I hope that our perspectives gave you spiritual insight. And see ya.
Oh, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Love you all. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you guys. All right, so definitely leave your feedback. We'll comment with you guys, and we will be around. Happy full moon. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy everything. And that's it. Cool.
See you soon.
All right, see you soon. Have a great night. Yeah, that. Bye-bye.
Bye.